Welcome to the Phil and H Travel Podcast. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Picture this for a second, okay? You've just paid like $5,000.
Right?
You've been traveling across multiple time zones for 3 brutal, exhausting days. You are finally sitting on the deck of a multi-million-dollar luxury yacht. The sun is shining, the water was crystal clear, and a local guide looks you dead in the eye and tells you that if you paddle out into the ocean right now, the live coral will quite literally tear you to shreds.
It's a terrifying realization.
Exactly. So today our deep dive is pointing its compass toward a destination that has achieved this almost mythological, untouchable status in the global surfing world. We are officially auditing the Mentawai Islands.
Yeah, that remote chain off the coast of West Sumatra, Indonesia.
Right, and we're specifically looking at the upcoming 2026-2027 season. And let me tell you right out of the gate, this is a destination completely defined by extreme, punishing contradictions.
Oh, without a doubt.
It is a chain of islands that is genuinely world-class, like arguably unparalleled anywhere on the planet for high-performance surfing, but simultaneously is genuinely brutal on cost, on access, and on basic human comfort for absolutely everyone else.
It really is the ultimate double-edged sword of global travel. I
Yeah.
mean, you're looking at an environment that fundamentally requires you to surrender control entirely.
Yeah.
The central tension of this whole deep dive is this massive, often painful collision between money and skill.
Let's lay out the reality check right up front for you, the listener, because we need to be incredibly clear about who this is actually for.
We do.
This destination suits confident, intermediate to advanced surfers, period. People who possess the physical fitness and, honestly, the mental fortitude to ride fast, hollow waves over incredibly shallow, razor-sharp reef breaks. It does not suit non-surfers.
Yes.
It does not suit small children. And it absolutely, unequivocally does not suit anyone who needs vibrant nightlife, a walkable town, easy medical access, or just, a quick relaxing beach holiday where you read a paperback on the sand. If you're planning a trip and want the honest, is it worth it verdict before you book, follow the show on Spotify or Apple.
That reality check is it's so crucial because the absolute worst, most expensive mistake you can make as a traveler is booking a trip based on like an aesthetic you saw scrolling on a social media feed.
Yeah, the Instagram trap.
Right. You see the drone shots, but then you arrive and realize the physical environment is actively working against your basic expectations.
So if the Mentawais are so punishing, right, if the logistics are a nightmare and the reef is actively dangerous, why do people spend thousands of dollars and travel for days just to subject themselves to it? Let's unpack the baseline numbers and figure out what is really happening out there.
Well, there's a contrarian claim we need to introduce right away to frame this entire deep dive. The Mentawai chain is one of the very few surf destinations on Earth that is genuinely 100% worth the astronomical money.
But only for the right person.
Exactly. For the right person, it's worth every penny. And conversely, it is a genuinely terrible, arguably disastrous value for almost everyone else.
Yeah, and looking at the baseline data and the historical pricing before we hit record, the numbers are just staggering. What's fascinating is why we are auditing this specific geographic zone now for the 2026-2027 season.
It represents a massive, undeniable pricing and access inflection point. You look back just a few years, standard charter boats used to sit quite comfortably around the $2,500 mark for a week-long trip.
Which is, expensive but attainable for a dedicated surfer who's saving up.
Right. But today, those exact same boats with the exact same hulls and engines are routinely quoting $3,000 to $7,000 plus per person for a 10 to 14-day trip. In land camps, they fought bitterly to hold the line at that $950 mark for 7 days, but the extras surrounding that base rate have crept up significantly.
I want to just lay out all the core US dollar numbers right here conversationally, because I want you, the listener, to keep this mathematical framework in your head as we dive deeper.
Go for it.
Think of this as your financial baseline. We're looking at about $950 for a week if you are fully land-based on a strict budget. Stepping up to the mid-range, you're looking at $135 to $250 per day at an established camp.
Which adds up fast.
Oh, incredibly fast. Then the premium charter trips, like you said, $3,000 to $7,000 plus. To even access these camps, the fast ferry crossing from the mainland city of Padang is around $22 to $25 each way. But then round-trip resort transfers, basically the private speedboats that pick you up from the ferry dock and take you to your actual bed, those will hit you for $215 to $350 per person.
Don't forget the legislation changes.
Right. The regional surf tax. The local government now levies a surf tax of roughly $135 per visiting surfer. Sometimes it's hidden, sometimes it's upfront, but it's always there.
When you lay those raw numbers out sequentially, the unforgiving reality of the Mentawai starts to fully crystallize. And it's not just the budget that is unforgiving, it is the physical ocean itself.
Let's talk about that.
The famous breaks out here waves with names like hollow trees, lances right, macaronis, rifles. These are names whispered with absolute reverence in surf shops globally. But let's explain the physical mechanism of what these waves actually are.
Yeah, let's do a quick explain it like I'm 5 here.
Okay, so a sand bottom beach break, like you might find in California or France, absorbs a surfer's fall. The sand shifts. A live coral reef in Indonesia is a living, rigid, porous animal colony. It is covered in bacteria, it is incredibly sharp, and the geometry of the ocean floor causes the incoming wave to draw the water off the reef right as the wave breaks.
Creating a vacuum effect.
Exactly, a massive vacuum. If you fall, you are not falling into deep water. You are often falling onto dry, jagged, infectious rock. If you are someone who pictured a relaxed island beach break with a sandy bottom where you can casually paddle around and learn, you will be in for a severe, potentially medical shock.
Wait, hold on. Let me stop you right there because this raises an incredibly important question for the broader audience. If I am a beginner, let's say I've taken a few lessons in Hawaii, I can stand up on a foam board, and I just want to learn on beautiful warm water waves in an exotic location. If I pay this $7,000, am I literally just paying full premium price to sit in the water and be an audience member for other better surfers?
Yes, bluntly yes.
Ouch.
If you are a beginner or even a slightly nervous, unconfident intermediate, you are effectively paying $135 to $250 a day just to sit in the safe water of the channel on a bobbing boat, swatting flies, watching expert surfers ride the waves you paid to access.
Because you literally can't paddle out.
You cannot casually paddle out at a wave like hollow trees and just hope for the best. The sheer physics of the wave will punish you, the reef will cut you open, and the local surf guides will likely, and entirely rightly, by the way, tell you to stay on the boat for your own physical safety.
So the skip-if verdict here is immediate and absolute. Skip this trip entirely if you cannot confidently paddle into and surf a fast, shallow, overhead reef wave.
Yep.
You are buying a ticket to a stadium where you are not equipped to play the sport.
Okay, but let's build the hypothetical. Let's say you are the right skill level. You've got the chops, you've surfed roofs before, you've saved the money.
Right.
When should you actually go? Because looking at all our sourced research, booking the wrong month isn't just a slight inconvenience. It is a $5,000 atmospheric mistake.
This is the segment that truly fundamentally decides the fate of your entire trip. So we need to go incredibly deep into the seasonal breakdown and the mechanics of the ocean. The Mentawai chain works almost exclusively on Southern Hemisphere groundswell.
Let's break down what that actually means for the listener. Think of local wind waves, the kind you see at a normal beach on a breezy day, like splashing in a bathtub. It's choppy, weak, disorganized.
Groundswell is entirely different.
Completely different. It's like someone dropping a massive boulder into the other side of a swimming pool. Storms deep in the Southern Ocean near Antarctica generate these massive, organized pulses of pure kinetic energy.
And these pulses travel thousands of miles across the deep Indian Ocean.
Right. They groom themselves, becoming clean and uniform before violently unloading their energy onto these shallow Indonesian reefs. Because of the timing of the Antarctic winter, this means the prime window for waves is from April to October.
Right. And within that broad April to October window, we have the peak of the peak. June, July, August, and September.
Exactly. Those 4 specific months are when you see the biggest, most powerful, and most consistent surf. The storms down south are at their most violent, sending wave after wave.
The weather is better too, right?
Yeah, it's the driest weather in the Mentawais, with favorable offshore winds, meaning the wind blows from the land toward the ocean, holding the face of the wave open and creating those famous perfectly round tubes.
And it is a massive... This mechanical perfection brings the highest prices and the thickest crowds.
Oh, yeah. Every single luxury charter boat is booked to capacity, every land camp is full, and the lineups are packed. Now, on either side of that peak, you have the shoulder season. April, May, and late September into October.
Which is often excellent.
It's noticeably less crowded because the pure peak chasers aren't there. And honestly, it is a much, much smarter play for intermediate surfers because the ocean energy is a touch more forgiving. You still get world-class, life-changing waves, but the ocean isn't trying to tear your head off quite as aggressively.
Okay, but then we have the wet season running from November through March. According to the data, you get shorter, significantly less consistent swell, definitely more rain, and more unpredictable wind.
Yep, that's the trade-off.
But you also get real financial bargains and near-empty lineups. Resorts like Macaroni's are heavily discounting their rates, offering up to 30% off for early weekly bookings from November to March. That's compared to maybe a 20% discount in the prime March to October window.
Sure, the discounts are there.
And honestly,
I
I look at that math.
Yeah.
I look at a 30% wet season discount, and I have to say, I think that might be the absolute best value window in all of Indonesian surfing. Think about it. You get the premium resort amenities, you get the fancy meals, you deal with zero crowds in the water, and you get a massive thousands of dollars discount. To me, that isn't a compromise. That is the ultimate travel hack.
I have to push back on that and push back extremely hard.
Oh, well,
Because you aren't just buying a discounted hotel room, you're buying a massive discount on atmospheric consistency. You have to understand the mechanism of these waves. The entire draw of the Mentawais relies on clean, organized swell, combining with favorable winds. Let's go back to our weather mechanics. During the wet season, the winds shift. You get localized onshore winds. An onshore wind blows from the ocean onto the land. It hits the back of the wave, crumbling it, chopping it to pieces, and turning a world-class barrel into a messy, unrideable slop.
that does sound bad.
It's awful. If you book a trip in January hoping for a travel hack, and a week of localized squalls flattens the swell and turns the wind onshore, you have just spent thousands of dollars, flown halfway across the world, and burned your precious vacation days purely to sit on a wet, humid veranda, swatting mosquitoes while staring at a gray, choppy sea. The concept of value completely instantly evaporates if you cannot actually surf. You are taking on an unacceptable level of atmospheric risk just to save 30% on the room rate?
Come on, though. Surfers complain about crowds constantly. They talk about how surfing has lost its soul because there are too many people. If you go in January, you are alone. Even if the wave isn't a perfect 10 out of 10, surfing a 7 out of 10 wave by yourself in tropical water has to be worth the gamble, right?
It's a gamble where the house usually wins. I mean, if the weather miraculously holds, yes, you look like an absolute genius. You get decent waves to yourself. But if it doesn't, and the climatology dictates that it often won't, you are just a very expensive spectator to a tropical rainstorm. The misery of being trapped on a remote island with bad weather cannot be overstated. There is nowhere to go. There is no backup plan.
I see your point. The isolation magnifies the failure. If you go to Paris and it rains, you go to a museum. If you go to the Mentawais and the wind is wrong, you just stare at a wall.
Precisely. And this leads us directly into myth-busting the idea of the empty frontier. We need to shatter this illusion right now.
Yeah, let's talk about the crowds.
The concept of the Mentawai Islands as this lonely, undiscovered, romantic outpost at the edge of the world is long gone, especially at the marquee name brand breaks. Let's paint a picture of peak season at Hollow Trees, which is located off the Kadiat side of Sumatra Island, or at Macaroni's down in the south. You can and will routinely see 20 to 40 highly aggressive, highly skilled surfers in the water at once.
20 to 40.
Yes. This happens because the ocean is an open road. You will have multiple $7,000 a week charter boats drop anchor at a single break at the exact same time as the speedboats arriving from the local land resorts.
I want the listener to really visualize this. 40 extremely competitive surfers, all fighting for the exact same tiny peak of water, breaking over a shallow, razor-sharp reef.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a Zen spiritual frontier at all. That sounds less like a vacation and more like a crowded skate park where the concrete is moving and highly infectious.
That is a phenomenal analogy. It can be incredibly intense, and tempers do flare. To understand how to intelligently navigate this, you have to understand the macro geographic zones of the island chain.
Let's map it out.
You have Sumatra Island, which is central and home to the main ferry hub, a town called Tuapajat. Then to the north, you have Siberut, which is by far the largest island, featuring the port of Muara Siberut and a deep indigenous jungle interior. Down to the south, you have North and South Pagai, where the town of Sikakap and the incredibly famous Macaroni's break are located. But the real strategic base, the chess move if you absolutely hate lineup pressure and crowds, is setting up in the playground zone.
Right, the playground zone, situated near Kandui and Karamboa. This area is practically mythic because it is home to legendary heavy waves like rifles, bank faults, Kandui, and Napusi.
Exactly. The geography of the playground zone is brilliant from a logistics standpoint because it naturally spreads the crowds across many different reef passes facing entirely different directions. If the wind shifts south and ruins one wave, you just take a 10-minute speedboat ride around the corner of a tiny island to another wave that is perfectly protected from that specific wind. You have options.
That makes sense.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting regarding how you actually secure a spot in any of these zones. Let's look at the economics. The real booking currency out here isn't necessarily nightly rate drops. Accommodation and charter prices barely flex by the month for the established land camps. Many of them actually advertise fixed year-round rates.
So the currency isn't money, the currency is lead time.
Spot on. Charter boat availability is the ultimate immovable bottleneck of the Mentawai economy. There are only so many legitimate, safe boats. Peak weeks in July and August on the best boats sell out 12 to 18 months in advance.
Wow.
So booking lead time, not your ability to negotiate a nightly rate, is what you're really competing over. If you want peak season on a top-tier charter or a premium resort, you're reserving a year plus ahead. If you're aiming for the shoulder season, you might get lucky 3 to 6 months out.
And whatever you do, this is a critical piece of due diligence. Avoid booking a tight one-week peak trip with 0 buffer days.
Oh, absolutely.
If you only have exactly 7 days of vacation time, a single blown ferry crossing due to a storm, or a 3-day flap spell where the ocean goes quiet will completely eat a huge, incredibly expensive share of your trip.
Okay, so let's say you've navigated that multi-year booking gauntlet. You've secured your optimal window. You've paid your deposits. Now you actually have to get your physical body there.
Oh boy.
And let me tell you, looking at the travel routing, the travel day is an absolute beast.
It is a grueling 2-stage grind, and it absolutely sets the psychological tone for your entire experience. Let's walk you through the physical reality of arrival.
Stage 1.
You fly into Minangkabau International Airport in Padang, located on the mainland of West Sumatra. Unless you are already in Southeast Asia, you are almost certainly flying a massive long-haul flight and connecting through major hubs like Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, or Singapore just to get there.
Which is exhausting in itself.
Definitely. The budget carriers linking Jakarta to Padang are actually quite reasonable, usually running around $30 to $60 one way. Once you land in Padang, sweaty and exhausted, it's roughly a 1-hour car ride through chaotic mainland traffic from the airport to the harbor area.
Okay, so imagine you're a listener. You're in Padang, the humidity is 90%, you are sweating through your shirt, and you are dragging a massive, awkward 50-pound surfboard bag behind you. Now you have to cross the ocean straight to the actual islands.
And there are exactly 3 ways to do this, right? Let's debate them because this is where the logistics get crazy. Option 1 is the Mentawai Fast Ferry.
The Mentawai Fast is the standard workhorse of the region. It is a large passenger ferry that runs from the Padang harbor out to Tua Pejat, Siberut, or Sikakap, depending on the day. The physical crossing takes about 3 to 4 hours.
And the cost?
The tourist fares are extremely reasonable. You're looking at near $22 for a regular ticket and maybe $25 for a VIP seat, which usually just means slightly better air conditioning. But the massive catch here is the rigid schedule. Typical departures are 10 a.m. on Sunday and Monday and 7 a.m. on Wednesday and Friday. And this varies entirely by route and day. You are entirely helplessly at the mercy of that specific timetable.
Option 2, you skip the boat and take the air route. This is the Susi Air Light plane.
Right. This is a tiny 1-hour flight from Padang mainland to the small Rokot airport on Sumatra Island. On paper, it sounds amazing. You skip the 4-hour ocean crossing. But it only flies on extremely limited days, usually just Tuesday and Friday around 7 a.m.
And you're still not at the wave.
Exactly. Once you land on the airstrip, you aren't at the wave. You still have a bumpy 2-hour car transfer to get from the airstrip to your actual camp. When resorts bundle this flight as part of a transfer package, it prices out near $220 per person round trip.
Also, we have to talk about the physics of light planes.
The weight limits. They have incredibly strict weight limits, which is an absolute nightmare if you are carrying heavy, multiple surfboard bags. They will simply leave your boards on the tarmac if the plane is too heavy.
That is terrifying. Imagine arriving and your boards are just gone. And then option 3 is the absolute baller move, the private speedboat charter.
If you have the limitless budget, this is the premium escape hatch from the logistical nightmare. you are looking at about $5,500 for a private boat that holds up to 10 people, or $7,000 for a larger, faster vessel holding up to 18 people.
Still takes 3 to 4 hours to cross the strait, though.
It does. But the massive advantage is that you leave on your schedule, directly from the Padang harbor, straight to the beach of your resort, completely bypassing the ferry terminals.
Here is where the friction really starts to grind against the reward for the average traveler. Because getting on these ferries isn't just a matter of buying a $25 ticket and relaxing. You have hidden board freight surcharges running about $14 to $43 just to get your luggage on board.
And the seasickness.
Oh, let's talk about the sea state. If you are even slightly prone to seasickness, a rough 4-hour crossing in the Mentawai Fast is genuinely physically agonizing. You are crammed into a cabin, the air conditioning is either freezing you to death or completely broken, the smell of diesel fuel is everywhere, and the boat is violently pitching and rolling over open ocean swells.
It's a grueling test of endurance. But then comes the psychological payoff, the reward.
When you finally see the islands?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first truly positive surprise of the trip is that magical moment when the deep blue open ocean suddenly turns into vibrant, deep green jungle and pristine neon blue reef. And despite how incredibly remote you are suddenly struck by how incredibly organized and sophisticated the established camps are once you finally step off the boat.
It's a huge contrast.
They have this operation down to a science. The contrast between the chaotic ferry and the manicured resort is jarring in the best way.
So, to summarize the transit, this isn't a step off the plane, grab a mojito at the hotel bar kind of trip. It sounds like an expedition gauntlet. Given all these moving parts, all these potential delays, is a buffer night in Padang basically mandatory at this point?
It is absolutely unequivocally mandatory. The honest verdict on arrival is that it feels intensely draining, not easy or luxurious. If your incoming long-haul flight is delayed by even 2 hours, you miss the morning ferry.
And if you miss the ferry,
you lose 2 days of your trip. On the way back, if the ferry is delayed by a storm, you miss your expensive flight home. You must plan and pay for a buffer night in Padang on each end of the trip. It dramatically lowers your blood pressure, and it protects your massive financial investment.
Okay, so you've survived the long-haul flights, you've survived the ferry crossing, you've made it across the strait, and the jungle is finally in sight. Where are you actually sleeping?
This is where we need to clearly break down the 4 distinct traveler types, the 4 physical realities of the accommodation and the associated costs, all in USD. Let's start at the bottom with the backpacker, or the extreme budget traveler.
Right, so you can base yourself in a local village homestay, something like Surf Homestay Kadiat, which is located near hollow trees on the Kadiat side, or maybe a basic lodgement, which is a very simple local guest house around Tua Pijat.
Very basic.
Yeah. This will run you roughly $18 to $35 per night, often with extremely simple, carb-heavy meals included. Or you can look at a slightly more organized budget land camp on the Cyberroute side for around $135 per night, all in which, if you do the math, is where we get that baseline $950 for 7 days model.
We need to ask, who does this actually suit? It strictly suits highly self-sufficient, rugged surfers who are perfectly happy to physically walk across reef to get to a break, or who have the extroverted hustle to negotiate, organize, and share a local short wooden boat ride with other surfers every single morning.
You really have to earn your ways.
You do. But you must deeply understand the physical trade-offs. You are sleeping in a basic fan-cooled room in 90-degree tropical humidity. You will sweat through your sheets. Your food choices will be incredibly limited to local staples. And critically, from a budget perspective, you will still have to pull cash out of your pocket to pay per boat trip every single time you want to reach the better waves that aren't located directly in front of your homestay porch.
Let's step up the ladder to the mid-range couple. We're talking about established land camps. Places like the Shadow Mentawai, Villa Onu, Driftwood Mentawai, or Solid Surf House.
The classics.
Right, these operations are mostly clustered in the wave-rich playgrounds and Kandui zone or on Sumatra. You're looking at roughly $150 to $300 per person per night, all-inclusive. And that all-inclusive label usually means your daily boat guiding the crucial access to the waves is baked right into the upfront price.
This tier is absolutely ideal for 2 surfers traveling together who want fixed, predictable logistics. They want to wake up at 5 a.m. and hustle the village for a boat captain. They want an experienced guy to knock on their door and say, "The wind is blowing offshore at Napusi, grab your boards, let's go."
But there's a trade-off.
The trade-off here is a loss of autonomy. You are locked into rigid weekly schedules, and you are totally 100% dependent on that specific camp's boats for your wave access. If the camp boat decides to go to a wave you think is too big or too small, too bad, you are going where the boat goes.
Then we have the family tier. And looking closely at the research data, the options thin out incredibly fast here. Macaroni's Resort is one of the very few operations that actively caters to this demographic, offering a dedicated family suite for around $150 per night.
Plus the extras.
Right, you have to read the fine print. That is, plus mandatory expensive per-guest activity packages layered on top of the base room rate. You also have ultra-high-end villa-style stays like Kandui villas, but they exist at an extreme premium price point.
The physical and psychological reality for families out here is brutally tough. It really truly only suits families with older teenagers who are already dedicated, highly competent surfers and who possess a very, very large disposable income.
What about little kids?
The trade-offs are incredibly steep. The aggregate cost is astronomical. You are a terrifying multi-hour boat ride away from serious pediatric medical care if a child gets a fever or a reef cut. And frankly, there is notoriously little for non-surfing younger children to actually do all day besides sit by a pool in the crushing heat.
Finally, we reach the luxury and comfort tier. These are places like Kandui Resort on Awera, Pit Stop Hill, HT's Mentawai Surf Resort, and the premier VIP rooms at Macaroni's. These run roughly $400 to $900 per person per night.
Or the luxury boats.
Yeah, or you abandon the land entirely and take to the water on high-end legendary charter boats like Addiction, Mangalui, or the Indies Trader Fleet, which will run you $3,000 to $7,000 plus per trip.
This top tier strictly suits the traveler who demands absolute, prime, immediate access to the highest quality waves on Earth, but flatly refuses to compromise on a hot, high-pressure shower, an ice-cold beer, an exceptional chef-prepared service.
But you're still in the jungle.
Exactly. Even if you were dropping $900 a night, the fundamental geographic trade-off remains identical to the backpacker. You are still incredibly remote. You're still completely locked in and at the mercy of the weather. And the entire rhythm of the luxury boat or the luxury resort is still fundamentally obsessively centered around surfing.
Okay, let's pause here because I have to ask on behalf of the general travel audience. You've given us these 4 tiers. But is there any middle ground for someone who wants a hybrid vacation? Someone who wants to surf at dawn, but then just wake up, walk down a paved street to a cute local cafe, grab a latte, and browse some boutique shops? Or is the concept of walkability a total myth out here?
It is a complete total myth.
Really? Nowhere?
Nowhere. Across all 4 of these tiers, from the $18 homestay to the $7,000 yacht walkability, as we fundamentally understand it in Western tourism, simply does not exist in the Mentawais. There are no paved promenades. There are no boutique shopping streets. The noise you hear at night is the screeching of the jungle canopy, not a pulsing nightclub.
Wow.
Your physical access to beaches, to different views, and to surf breaks is almost entirely dependent on a combustion engine and a boat hull. You are happily, voluntarily isolated in a stunning but very geographically fixed location.
So since you're entirely dependent on these camps and these boats, how do you actually eat? And frankly speaking, how do you survive if you forgot to pack your favorite snacks or electrolyte powders?
This is a vital logistical point that catches many first-timers off guard. Food is mostly bundled into the camps and charters, and you should be incredibly deeply grateful for that fact because the outer islands are exceptionally sparse regarding infrastructure. You must do all your provisioning and stock up in the mainland city of Padang before you cross the strait.
Padang is the ultimate staging ground.
Exactly. You go to places like Transmart Padang, the Plaza and Dallas Mall, and the massive, bustling central Pasar Raya market. This is where you physically buy your specialized protein bars, your critical electrolyte powders for dehydration, your specific reef cut medical supplies, and any highly specific dietary items you absolutely cannot live without.
Because once you cross over...
Once you cross the ocean and are on the islands, warongs, which are small, incredibly basic, local widow eateries and tiny, dusty mini-marts around Tua Pajat are your only real retail options. In the deep Siberut villages, the provisions are incredibly basic. Think rice, eggs, and instant noodles.
Let me dive into the data and read out the exact local prices so you listening right now can really grasp the microeconomics at play here. A simple local meal at a warung will cost you $2 to $4. A bottle of clean drinking water is about 50 cents. A local bintang beer is $2 to $3. A local coffee is $1 to $2. A packet of instant noodles is well under $1.
Very affordable.
Yeah. Fresh fish is incredibly cheap if you buy it directly from the fishermen at the village markets. If you're back in Padang City on the mainland, a very nice sit-down restaurant meal runs $5 to $8. And the ultimate local economic reference point, a massive plate of nasi Padang, which is a mountain of rice with various rich curries and sides, runs about 40,000 Indonesian rupiah, which translates to roughly $3 USD.
When you look at those numbers, it shows you the stark, incredible contrast between the local Indonesian village economy and the highly inflated resort economy. It also naturally brings up the complex topic of tipping.
Right.
While tipping is not strictly an obligatory part of local Indonesian culture, the boat crews, the captains, and the expert surf guides out in Mentawai genuinely rely on end-of-trip tips from wealthy Western tourists to make a sustainable living wage. As a traveler, you should strictly budget $30 to $80 in cash for the week to distribute among the staff who kept you safe on the reef.
Let's also unpack the cultural etiquette, because this is huge. You aren't just visiting an insulated surf theme park. You are visiting West Sumatra, which is a deeply conservative, practicing Muslim province.
Right. You need to be highly respectful of the local cultural realities. In practice, this means dressing modestly, covering shoulders and knees whenever you are walking off the beach, or venturing outside the immediate fenced resort grounds into the villages.
Good to know.
You must always ask for permission before pointing a camera and photographing local people. And you must respect that alcohol is very low-key. It is not always available in local village areas. And public drunkenness or loud, obnoxious behavior in a village setting is deeply, deeply frowned upon and highly disrespectful.
Okay, let's unpack this dietary aspect a bit more, because I know how modern travelers operate. If I have a severe gluten allergy or I'm a strict ethical vegan, can I just show up, check in, and casually ask the camp kitchen to accommodate me? I mean, if I'm paying $250 a day, surely a chef can whip something up on the fly.
Absolutely not. I cannot stress this enough. Do not do this. You must confirm your strict dietary limitations with your camp manager well in advance, months before you ever leave your home country.
Why is it such a big deal?
You have to understand the fragile logistics chain required to get food to these outer islands. It is incredibly complex. The resort kitchen relies on massive bulk shipments of dry staples ferried over from Padang once a week.
Oh, right. They can't just run to the store.
No. If you need reliable vegetarian proteins like tofu or tempeh or specialized gluten-free bread, last-minute substitutions are physically, geographically impossible once you are out there. The chef cannot just run down the street to Whole Foods. If you don't plan ahead and communicate, you will literally be eating plain white rice and plain vegetables for 7 straight days.
That sounds miserable.
Mm.
So let's take all these food limitations, these bed costs, and these logistical hurdles, and look at the actual bottom line daily burn rate. Because at the end of the day, that's what really matters to the listener's wallet.
This is a priority segment for anyone actively planning. We need to run through exactly what travelers will bleed daily across 5 specific line item budgets. Let's start back at the bottom with the backpacker tier.
So looking at the spreadsheet, the daily burn rate for a highly frugal backpacker is $70 to $110, with a comfortable, realistic sweet spot around $90 a day. Let's break that math down so it makes sense.
Go for it.
You're looking at $25 a night for the basic homestay bed. $10 allocated for local food, assuming some basic rice and egg meals are included by the host. $30 strictly allocated for shared wooden boats and transport to the actual breaks. $15 for board rental if you did pay the massive airline fees to bring your own. And a $10 daily buffer for incidentals like water or a beer.
The financial trap here for the budget traveler is entirely hidden in the boat math. Your budget overruns will almost exclusively come from being forced to pay for solo boat trips. What optimistic travelers constantly underestimate when they look at a map is how often you actually need a motorized boat to reach a rideable wave.
Because you can't just walk over the reef.
Right. If the wind shifts slightly, you can't just walk to the next bay over the sharp coral. You have to hire a boat captain. Good value in this specific tier means securing a homestay in Katy that is genuinely, physically within walking range of the Hollow Trees wave.
And bad value.
Bad value is showing up on a strict backpacker budget and realizing you are geographically isolated and have to charter a local boat by yourself, paying full price every single morning just to get wet.
Moving up, the next tier is the mid-range budget. This scales to $135 to $250 per day per person. A comfortable, safe number to plan your savings around is $200 a day. This represents an all-inclusive land camp covering your air-conditioned accommodation, 3 hearty meals, your daily boat guiding, and your daily transfers to the surf.
Which is a solid deal.
It is. The realistic all-in weekly figure hits about $1,400 per surfer. And remember, listener, that is $1,400 before you pay for your long-haul international flights.
And where do the mid-range budget overruns happen? Alcohol is a massive one. Those $3 bintangs seem cheap until you drink 5 of them a night, and they add up incredibly fast over a 7-day stay.
What else?
Photo and video packages are another massive, highly seductive hidden cost. You get the barrel of your life, you want the photographic proof to show your friends back home, and the resident camp photographer knows exactly how much to charge you for that USB drive. And again, you have to budget for board rentals or exorbitant repair fees if you violently snap a fin box on the shallow reef.
Now, let's look at the family budget. We touched on how tough this is, but the math is genuinely staggering. For a standard family of 4, 2 adults and 2 kids at a premium resort like Macaroni's, you are looking at burning $700 and $900 per night.
Wow.
Let's break it down. How do we arrive at that number? It's the $150 base rate for the family suite, plus 2 mandatory adult surfer packages at $225 each, plus 2 mandatory kids non-searching packages at $95 to $125 each. That's just your daily baseline before any long-stay discounts apply.
And then you have to add the brutal logistics on top of that daily rate. Round-trip transfers for a family of 4 from the mainland will run $600 to $1,000. The regional surf tax is about $135 per surfing person, plus 4 expensive international flights.
So what's the grand total?
When the dust settles and you look at your credit card statement, a simple 1-week family trip realistically hits between $10,000 and $15,000. It is a massive, top-tier financial commitment for a very niche experience.
For the true luxury tier, a premium resort runs roughly $400 to $900 per person per day. If you go the premium charter boat route, paying $3,000 to $7,000 for a 10 to 14-day sailing, the math works out to roughly $300 to $600 plus per person per day.
It's definitely an investment.
A comfortable, safe planning number to hold in your head for luxury is $600 per day. Overruns at this elite tier are premium liquor bar tabs, high-end spa treatments to soothe sore muscles, and elite professional surf photography packages shot from the water.
Finally, let's address the digital nomad monthly budget. There is a huge, highly romanticized fantasy right now of moving to a remote tropical island, opening a silver laptop under a palm tree, and working lucrative tech jobs between perfect surf sessions.
Sounds like a dream.
Bluntly, the outer Mentawai Islands are an incredibly poor, frustrating nomad base. The Wi-Fi infrastructure is weak to completely non-existent when it rains. The food economy is heavily import-dependent, making the daily cost of living surprisingly high for Southeast Asia. A long-stay surfer parked out near Tua Pishat trying to work might burn through $1,800 to $3,500 a month just surviving on basic amenities.
Okay, I have to push back on this nomad point. Because if you look at Instagram, I see digital nomads working from literally everywhere these days. They are in tents in the Sahara, they are in huts in the high Himalayas. With the advent of satellite internet like Starlink, can a remote worker really not make the Mentawai's work as a viable long-term base?
It's not just about raw bandwidth. It's about the fragility of the overall infrastructure and the extreme isolation. You are missing the macro picture. If the village generator blows a gasket, you have zero power to charge that laptop for days.
Oh, true.
If the weekly supply boat from Padang is delayed by a storm, fresh food literally vanishes from the shelves. The truly smart, veteran digital nomad plays Padang City on the mainland as their stable base, where the cost of living is a very manageable $700 to $1,200 per month, with fiber internet and hospitals, and then they just take highly targeted, short boat trips out to the outer islands when a massive, perfect swell is forecasted.
Right. Keep it as an expedition.
Exactly. The honest number and the golden unbreakable rule here is you must treat the Mentawai chain as a temporary expedition trip, not a permanent lifestyle base.
Those budgets look incredibly clean and manageable on a spreadsheet, but our deep dive revealed there are 3 massive, highly destructive financial landmines waiting for you out there. Let's name them clearly and break down exactly how they destroy your wallet.
This is critical for anyone listening. Trap 1, the ferry weather trap. The geographical mechanism here is simple. The Mentawai fast crossing across the strait takes roughly 3 to 4 hours, but the vessel is entirely 100% weather dependent. If the open ocean seas are too rough, the local harbor master will aggressively delay or outright cancel the sailing for safety.
So the lived reality of this trap is an absolute nightmare. You get stranded in Padang on the way out, burning expensive hotel money while your resort room sits empty. Or worse, you get stuck on the island past your checkout date on the way home. You were losing a day or two of an already very short, very expensive vacation.
And the financial cost penalty is severe. Each lost day on the island is worth $135 to $250 of your prepaid mid-range package that you simply forfeit. Worse, if you're stuck on the island and miss your flight out of Padang, you trigger massive, punitive international flight change fees.
Who does this usually happen to?
The people most frequently and violently affected by this trap are surfers who booked a tight one-week peak season trip and optimistically tried to schedule tight international flight connections on the exact same day as their ferry ride.
How do you fix it?
The structural fix. You must build 1 or 2 buffer days in Padang into your itinerary. Consider booking the 1-hour Susi Air flight as a faster, though weight-limited backup plan, and absolutely never, ever book a same-day onward international flight out of Sumatra.
Trap 2 is what we call the surf tax and hidden extras trap. The mechanism here is purely marketing and psychology. Let's relate this to something everyone understands. Think of Venice implementing a tourist tax, or Bali charging a fee to enter the island to combat over-tourism. The Mentawais do this too.
They do.
But the headline package price you see on a shiny resort website often strategically excludes this roughly $135 regional surf tax. It excludes the board freight on the ferry, which is another $40 to $43. It completely ignores the transfer packages from the harbor to the resort, which run $215 to $350. And it excludes physical board rental at $12 to $22 a day.
The lived reality is that your beautiful, seemingly affordable, all-inclusive week quietly mutates and grows by $300 to $600 plus by the time you actually check out and hand over your credit card.
It's like buying a car and finding out the steering wheel is extra.
That's exactly what it feels like. This predominantly catches naive first-timers who are strictly comparing only the bold headline prices between different camps online. The fix is absolute ruthless diligence. You must demand a written, itemized inclusions list from the booking agent before you wire a deposit.
You have to ask specific questions.
Right. You must specifically ask, is the surf tax included? Are the harbor transfers included? Are the ferry board freight charges included? Budget camps often genuinely bake these into their all-in price to seem hassle-free, while premium high-end resorts like Macaroni's frequently leave them as annoying line-item extras on your final bill.
So the all-inclusive label is basically a mirage if you haven't meticulously read the fine print.
It completely ruins the vibe of your trip if you feel nickel and dimed while sitting in a pristine jungle. Which brings us to trap 3, the reef and skill trap, also known locally as the walking distance illusion.
Yeah, I want to spend time on this. Explain the physical mechanism of this trap.
We touched on this earlier, but we need to go deeper. The famous waves out here break over live, sharp, extremely shallow coral reef. When a glossy resort brochure says, walk to the break, what that frequently means in physical reality is a treacherous, barefoot boat ride or a perilous walk over exposed, slippery, razor-sharp reef at low tide just to get to the actual deep water takeoff zone.
It's not a walk on the beach.
Not at all. If you are an underskilled surfer, you either paddle out and get violently physically hurt by the ocean, or you sit on the boat, completely intimidated, and simply cannot ride what you paid thousands of dollars to experience.
The lived reality is brutal. I was looking at the medical data. We're talking deep, lacerating reef cuts that get infected almost instantly in the tropical bacteria-rich water. We were talking snapped fiberglass surfboards, and in bad cases, severe head or spinal trauma requiring an emergency evacuation back to Padang, which is hours away by pitching boat.
It's a huge risk.
The true cost of this trap isn't just replacement boards and medical bills. It's profound depression of an entirely wasted price tag on a dream trip you physically cannot participate in. Beginners and ego-driven, nervous intermediates are the most common victims here.
The fix is brutal. Honest self-assessment before you book. Go only if you are a confident intermediate plus surfer who has surfed shallow reefs before. You must pack protective reef booties. Do not let surf culture ego stop you from wearing them, and bring a proper comprehensive reef cut medical kit loaded with iodine and antibiotics.
Bring spare boards too, right?
Bring multiple spare boards because the geometry of the wave will almost certainly claim at least one. And if you are unsure of your abilities, pick a camp near a significantly more forgiving sloping break, like Bang Bang or somewhere tucked away in the playgrounds area, rather than arrogantly setting up camp directly in front of the heaviest, shallowest slabs in the region.
The ultimate skip-if for this trap: skip the Mentawais entirely if you cannot reliably and confidently make the drop on a fast, shallow overhead wave.
Absolutely.
That reef trap naturally highlights a much bigger, much scarier issue. What actually happens when things physically go wrong out there? Let's talk about safety, solo travel, and basic medical comfort.
Let's establish the real risk hierarchy because travelers frequently worry about entirely the wrong things. Number one, by a massive, undeniable margin, is a traumatic reef or board injury sustained hours away from a sterile hospital.
Makes sense.
Number two is sea and boat safety. This applies during the long open ocean strait crossings and your daily high-speed transfers between islands and small dinghies. Number three is mosquito-borne illness. And number four is severe sun exposure and heat stroke dehydration.
Notice what isn't anywhere on that list. Crime. Violent crime against tourists is incredibly rare out there, and even petty theft is remarkably low in the villages. The real scams you might encounter are an underdelivered resort package or a freelance boat operator who overcharges you for a ride, not someone mugging you in an alleyway.
Right. Let's focus intently on the medical realities, specifically malaria and dengue fever. The risk in the immediate, highly developed resort zones like Sumatra is generally considered quite low, and some resorts actually advise against taking routine daily malaria prophylaxis due to the severe psychological side effects of the drugs.
But the interior is different.
Very different. The wider Mentawai chain, and specifically the deep jungle interior of Sumatra and the Padang Islands, carry a very real historical and present malaria risk. Dengue fever, which is carried by day-biting mosquitoes, is also heavily present. This absolutely requires a formal doctor's consultation in your home country before you fly. Sleeping under mosquito nets and constantly applying high-DEET repellent are standard, mandatory operating procedures.
And if you do get hurt, say you take a bad wipe out at HTs, you hit the reef hard, and you break a femur or suffer a deep laceration, what is the actual physical evacuation reality? How do you get out?
It is a logistical nightmare. There are very basic functional local clinics on Sumatra that can stitch a standard clean reef cut. But for any serious life-threatening trauma, you have to be evacuated to a major hospital in Padang.
Which is hours away.
Hours away by boat, potentially at night, potentially in a massive storm where helicopters cannot fly and boats cannot cross. Therefore, purchasing comprehensive premium travel insurance that explicitly and legally covers both extreme surfing injuries and emergency medical evacuation by air or sea is absolutely non-negotiable. Do not even step foot on the ferry without it.
Let's shift to demographic realities. For a solo female traveler, the established land camps are generally considered very safe and quite social. But we have to be brutally honest about the daily vibe. The scene is heavily male-dominated and intensely, almost exclusively focused on the act of surfing.
It can be a lot.
For a non-surfing solo woman or even a solo female surfer looking for a diverse vacation, it can feel incredibly isolating to be trapped in that specific monoculture. And again, the terrifying distance from advanced medical care is a genuine consideration for anyone traveling entirely alone.
And we keep coming back to the families. The fundamental, unfixable structural problem for families is that exact distance from serious pediatric care. When you combine the fragile immune systems of small children with extreme geographical remoteness and a baseline tropical mosquito risk, it's a highly stressful, anxiety-inducing combination for parents.
It's just not meant for toddlers.
This destination is built for surfing teenagers who are essentially competent young adults in the water, not for toddlers who need constant monitoring on a pitching boat deck.
You know, it sounds like the physical environment itself is the bouncer at the door of this exclusive club. It's not malicious, the locals aren't trying to rob you, it's just extremely profoundly unforgiving if you ignore the fundamental physical rules of the jungle and the open ocean.
That is the perfect exact analogy. The discomfort here is purely structural. It is the oppressive 90-degree heat, the constant hum of bugs, the endless spine-jarring boat rides, and the profound, isolating remoteness. It's not inherently dangerous if managed correctly by experts, but if that structural reality doesn't suit your specific vacation personality, no verdict number out of 10 is going to magically fix your miserable trip.
With all this friction, all this inherent medical risk, and the immense eye-watering expense we've just outlined in detail, we have to ask the most important question of the entire deep dive. What is the actual payoff? What makes it worth all of this suffering and expense? Let's talk about the best moments and the honest, crushing disappointments.
The highs are genuinely transcendental. To try and describe the absolute pure magic of scoring hollow trees or macaronis at size with clean offshore wind conditions, it is undeniably, objectively, a top 5 surfing experience globally.
The Holy Grail.
You are riding mechanically perfect, Hollow, spitting tubes over vibrant, living reef and water, so warm and clear you can literally see the coral heads flying past beneath your fiberglass board. And the sheer geographic density of quality waves, particularly in the playground zone, means that a highly knowledgeable local guide can read the wind shifts and chase the best sandbank or reef pass all week long. You are basically guaranteed world-class magazine cover surf if the ocean simply cooperates.
But surfing isn't the absolute only thing on the islands, right?
Yeah.
There's a profound ancient cultural element here. According to our research, the single strongest non-surf experience is the Siberut Jungle Trek.
It's an intense trip.
You can journey deep into the muddy interior of Siberut Island to meet the indigenous Mentawai communities. You physically meet the Sikare, the traditional tribal shamans. You witness the ancient, incredibly painful hand-tapped tattoo culture. And you can actually sleep in the sembara, the massive traditional wooden longhouses. These immersive tribe tours run roughly $215 to $620 per person, depending strictly on how many days you go and the size of your trekking group.
It is a remarkable, deeply intense cultural immersion, completely and utterly distinct from the wealthy coastal surf bubble.
You know, looking at that specific data point, I think the Siberut cultural trek completely redeems the trip for a non-surfing spouse or partner. If one person surfs all day, the other partner can take this incredible National Geographic level expedition into the deep jungle. It perfectly balances the scales. It makes a couple's trip highly viable and equitable, even if only one person actually cares about riding the waves.
I have to push back firmly on that conclusion. You are severely underestimating the massive logistics involved in moving through the jungle.
Really? How so?
Most surf resort packages are structurally built entirely around boat schedules, tides, and the reef. They are not built to facilitate multi-day arduous jungle treks. Bolting on a serious multi-day Siberut expedition is essentially booking a second, entirely separate logistical trip. It requires its own dedicated local guides, its own complex river transport, and multiple days physically away from the coastal resort.
Oh, I see.
It does not rescue a bored non-surfer who is parked at a dedicated surf camp for a week, watching their partner disappear on a speedboat for 6 hours a day, leaving them at the pool. The trek is amazing, yes, but it is a grueling expedition, not a casual 2-hour day trip distraction to keep a spouse entertained.
But wait, if they're paying $300 a night at a luxury resort, surely the resort can just organize a quick boat ride up the river for the afternoon. You don't have to sleep in the mud to see the culture. You can just do a half-day tour and be back for a nice dinner. That has to be a viable compromise for a married couple.
A half-day tour to a coastal village is possible, but it is not the authentic Siberut Sikare experience you just described. To see the deep, untouched culture, you have to travel far inland. It is a massive commitment of time and energy. It is not a casual compromise. If you try to force a non-surfer into this environment and offer a grueling jungle trek as the only alternative to boredom, you're going to have a very tense flight home.
Okay, I can see the point. It's a massive, complex excursion, not something you just casually sign up for at the hotel lobby desk after a buffet breakfast.
Yeah.
Now let's break down the honest disappointments. What are the things that people get incredibly hyped about on Instagram that end up being totally, frustratingly overrated in reality?
First, the beaches. They are beautiful, yes, but they are highly functional. They are a staging ground for loading speedboats and storing gear. They are not spectacular, sprawling, manicured, white sand lounging beaches. This is not the Maldives.
That's a good distinction.
Second, the enduring myth of the empty lineup. At the top breaks during the peak June to September season, it simply does not exist. You will be aggressively fighting for waves with highly competent strangers. And third, the extreme weather vulnerability. A single week of bad weather, bad onshore wind, or a flat swell can completely, entirely flatten the entire value of your $7,000 trip.
And a major critical warning pulled straight from our research. Do not overpay for things you fundamentally don't need to. Do not buy a premium $7,000 peak season charter boat ticket if a $950 land camp catches the exact same swell at the exact same break on the exact same day.
You're just paying for the boat at that point.
Right. You're paying a massive premium for softer Egyptian cotton sheets and a floating dining room, not better waves. And don't spend hundreds of dollars buying specialized heavy reef gear back home that you will only use once in your life, when you could easily rent the necessary equipment for $12 to $22 a day right there at the local camp.
Exactly. True value in the Mentawais is about paying strictly for access to the wave, not necessarily the luxury trimmings surrounding it.
If these harsh disappointments hit a little too close to home, Or if you're listening and realizing your physical skill level just isn't there yet to tackle shallow coral, you shouldn't force it. Let's look at the alternatives. We have two named, highly vetted alternatives, and they are both highly practical for different reasons.
Alternative 1 is Nias. Specifically, the areas around Soraka and Lagundra Bay, located much further north off the coast of North Sumatra. Why does it compare to the Mentawais?
Because it is another world-class, legendary, heavy Indonesian right-hand wave. But crucially, geopolitically and logistically, it is reachable and rideable as a strictly land-based trip. You don't need a boat to access the wave.
And the cost difference is absolutely staggering. It is dramatically cheaper. You can find budget lodgemen, which, again, are basic, fan-cooled local guest houses, literally steps from the wave, for around $10 to $30 a night. A total all-in trip to Nias is often less than half the aggregate cost of a single week at a mid-range Mentawai land camp.
Who should choose Nias? Budget-conscious surfers, absolutely. And anyone who craves the extreme simplicity of surfing one excellent mechanical wave without the exorbitant charter boat costs or the agonizing daily need to hire transport every morning.
Just walk and surf. At Nias, you wake up, grab your board, walk down the point, and paddle out. What it does vastly better is price, ultimate logistical simplicity, and direct land-based access. What it does worse, far less geographical variety. The Mentawais have dozens of world-class breaks facing different winds. Nias essentially has a few. And remember, it still carries the exact same serious malaria risks and medical remoteness considerations as Saibrut.
Alternative 2 is a massive, polar opposite pivot in luxury, Maldives surf charters, specifically focusing on the Malay and Central Atolls. What does this compare? Because this is the other classic bucket list warm water charter surf trip that every surfer dreams about.
The total USD cost difference here is broadly similar to the premium Mentawai charters. You are looking at roughly $2,500 to $6,000 plus per person, and sometimes much higher depending on the extravagant luxury level of the boat. Who should choose the Maldives? Mixed groups, and specifically married couples where one partner does not surf at all.
Because the Maldives is entirely malaria-free. And it is infinitely, vastly better for non-surf comfort, incredible snorkeling in calm lagoons, and that classic, highly polished, magazine cover resort life.
Precisely. The geography is different. The Maldives are coral atolls, meaning the reefs often slope more gently into deeper water. What the Maldives does vastly better is comfort, an undeniable massive medical safety margin, and the overall non-surfer vacation experience.
But the waves...
What it does worse, the sheer power of the waves. The surf in the Maldives is generally softer, slightly less heavy, and less physically critical than the absolute best violently tectonic reefs in the Mentawais. It is less of a pure adrenaline-fueled life-or-death performance destination.
But let me ask you this, because this is the ultimate dilemma.
Yeah.
If I have $5,000 saved up and my spouse doesn't surf at all, the Maldives is clearly the obvious rational choice for marital harmony. But do I completely lose the barrel experience? Am I trading the ultimate transcendent tube ride I'd get in Indonesia just so my partner can have a nice cabana and a cocktail?
You don't completely lose it, but you definitely dilute the intensity. You'll get beautiful, long, incredibly fun, highly rippable waves in the Maldives, but that heart in your throat, incredibly square, violently spitting barrel that entirely defines a wave like HTs or macaronis, that is fundamentally Indonesian tectonic reef geometry. You are making a conscious choice to trade peak terrifying wave intensity for peak, relaxing trip comfort. And frankly, for most marriages, that is a very smart, highly advisable trade.
We've run the numbers, we've explored the geographical alternatives, the complex weather mechanics, and the hidden financial traps. It's time for the final, rigid verdicts. Let's hit the is it worth it matrix.
Let's quickly and thoroughly review the final matrix scores and the key financial numbers for all 5 specific traveler types. Backpacker tier, 7 out of 10. It is absolutely worth it if you are a highly confident intermediate plus surfer who books that $950 land week or a cheap Katie at homestay, and you are highly willing to hustle and share local boats. You must skip this if you are a beginner or if you need any entertainment whatsoever beyond surfing.
What's the key number?
The key number to burn into your memory is $950 for 7 days. The Mentawai is genuinely one of the very few elite world-class waves a backpacker can still actually reach affordably, but only if the physical skill is there to utilize it safely.
Mid-range couple. 6 out of 10 if both of you surf at a high level, but a brutal 3 out of 10 if only one of you does. It is worth it if 2 surfers want a fixed, reliable, all-in camp at about $200 per day each, but skip it entirely if one partner doesn't surf, because they will pay roughly $1,400 for the week and get almost nothing in return but painful sunburn and mosquito bites. Key number, $1,400 per surfer per week.
Family tier. 3 out of 10. It is worth it only for families with older, highly competent surfing teenagers and a massive, highly disposable $10,000 to $15,000 budget to burn. Skip it immediately if you have small children, if you want easy, safe medical access, or if you need non-surf entertainment like supervised kids clubs. Key number, $10,000 plus per trip.
Luxury traveler, 6 out of 10. Worth it if you want a premium, high-end charter or resort, and you highly value scoring the best waves in the world with a high degree of comfort at $3,000 to $7,000 plus. But skip it if you are expecting Maldives-grade, white glove, flawless service, and a malaria-free safety margin. If you want absolutely pristine flawless service, book the Maldives instead. Key number, $600 per person per day.
Digital nomad or solo remote worker, 2 out of 10. Worth it only as a highly targeted, short, dedicated surf sabbatical based out of Padang City on the mainland. Skip it entirely as an actual remote work base on the islands because the fragile Wi-Fi, the high cost of imported food, and the extreme remoteness all work heavily and constantly against you. Key number, $700 to $1,200 per month living in Padang, not on the outer islands.
To summarize all of this incredible data, the Mentawai Islands are only worth it for a very specific, very narrow traveler type. The confident, physically skilled surfer with a solid budget. And even then, you have to book incredibly carefully. Peak summer weeks sell out 12 to 18 months in advance. The inclusions on packages vary wildly, often hiding hundreds of dollars in local taxes and logistical fees. And evacuation-grade medical insurance is absolutely, completely essential. For non-surfers, families with young kids, and beginners, the honest answer is a definitive, immediate skip.
It has to be.
But, looking at all this data, looking at the macroeconomic trends of surf tourism, it raises a highly provocative thought for me to leave with you, the listener. If these luxury charter prices continue to surge past $7,000, and the peak season gets even more aggressively crowded with 40 people fighting on a single peak, will the Mentawais eventually price out the dirtbag backpacker entirely? Are we actively watching the raw soul of surf exploration being pushed purely to places like Nias, leaving the Mentawais as nothing more than an exclusive, wildly expensive country club with a very sharp, very dangerous coral floor?
It is a profound, incredibly difficult question that the entire global surf industry is going to have to physically and economically reckon with over the next decade. The wild frontier is officially closing, and the price of entry is rising every single day.
If this gave you the honest verdict you needed, follow the show. New episodes drop every day.
That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.